Gun violence in the city of Toledo will be a hot topic as we head into the next mayoral race. Marty Finkbeiner, one of the candidates, already putting forth his 10-point plan. The mayor has been talking about it. He has gone out and hired violence interrupters. A press conference yesterday blaming the gun violence in Toledo on a gang problem. Operation Clean Sweep is starting in conjunction with the ATF around Toledo now to get more illegal guns off the street. But it's a problem not just here in Toledo. It's a problem many cities are facing, in part because of economic troubles, in part because of the pandemic, and in part because of a failure to do the job that needs to be done. And whether that's because police feel held back or in actuality are being held back by some of their city leaders. Dr. Alex Del Carmen is joining us. He's an associate dean at Tarleton State University in charge of the School of Criminology. Been on with us before. Dr. Del Carmen, always great to talk to you.
Great to talk to you, Scott.
This is a problem that cities around the country are facing right now. We're certainly seeing an uptick in violence, gun-related homicides, and more. I mean, we talk about the problem in Chicago on a weekly basis, but we're seeing stories of more random shootings and gun violence in other cities as well.
Yeah, there's no question, right? And some months ago, I remember being interviewed on this topic, and I said, look, you've got a country right now that is getting out of a pandemic. People are frustrated. They're unhappy. On top of that, the unemployment rate is skyrocketing. And then on top of that, you've got folks that are wanting to defund the police. When you add all of those ingredients together, you don't have to have a PhD in criminology like myself to be able to say, you know, your crime's going to go up and it's going to get out of control, which is exactly what's going on right now.
So many contributing factors to this. And I think that the economic struggles that many families are facing play into it. We already had an increase in the drug problem and the drug crisis in America before the pandemic even began, which obviously contributes to a gang issue. We've got a special scrutiny now on law enforcement where they can't get out into some of these neighborhoods to do the job that they need to do. And in fact, many resources are being taken away from them. You've got cities like, and I wish I could remember the exact city. You might recall the story offhand. I was watching it this morning on Fox and Friends, city in California where the police won't even get involved. If somebody is robbing your store, unless they're going to take $1,001, they don't care. The police won't stop them unless it gets above $1,000. So now you've got people just walking into retail stores and grabbing $900 worth of merchandise and walking out knowing that there will be no consequences for that theft.
Right, and then on top of that, you've got really good cops that are being encouraged to retire, right, by virtue of lack of support. You know, the pay is lousy, and then you have all this rhetoric across the nation about how all police officers are one way or another. And so, you know, we're losing a lot of institutional history, right? So we are seeing police officers with 25, 30 years of experience on the police force that are leaving. Who is going to mentor these 21-year-olds that are coming into the policing world without having someone with that level of experience? I am really, really concerned about what law enforcement is going to look like 5 or 10 years down the road.
Well, it'll be full of social workers, I believe. I don't know how effective that will be, but that seems to be the direction many leaders would like to see law enforcement go.
My concern is that at the end of the day, when you look at it at the work that police officers do every day, they do provide a great deal of service to the community, but there are those moments, and I've referred to these before as 100 hours of boredom, 1 second of terror in law enforcement, and there are those seconds of terror where police officers are facing a critical circumstance that they have to react, they have to shoot somebody, they have to arrest someone. And, you know, at the end of the day, you're going to want cops to be cops, right, and enforce the law when the law needs to be enforced. And, you know, all we want, and I've been saying this for some time now, is you don't have to abandon the practice of wanting a better police department, getting rid of the bad apples, getting rid of having a system in place that gets rid of police officers that are racist, that may want to steal something. You want to get rid of those folks, just like we want to do that in every profession out there. But you also want to keep the good cops and encourage them to do a good job and foster that environment that allows for young, talented people to go into law enforcement. I'm afraid we're not doing that anymore.
Here in Toledo, Mayor Wade Kapskavich has just hired a violence interrupter. And look, I hate to be the guy that starts to downplay and naysay a solution, before it's even given a chance. I just don't know how much I believe in this concept of violence interrupters. We're hiring a firm from Chicago where obviously they've done a bang-up job in Chicago. Look, I get if we've got a gang problem in Toledo, I get the idea of having someone who can relate and talk to that community, can get in there and get his boots on the ground and try to prevent retaliatory violence from happening. That's not a bad concept. But in theory, it's not going to work. That's not the way of the streets.
Not only that, you need the community, right? You need the community to be involved. I mean, it just can't be all on law enforcement. Your community has to be part of this.
So does that violence interrupter concept ever work?
What the research shows, what the data shows, is that that when you actually look at crime, and crime's going up, and we've been in this situation before where crime's going way up and everybody's alarmed and everybody's talking about crime. One of the things that we know is that is a cohesive, collective mechanism that interrupts crime, right? It's not one single entity. It can't be just on the cops. It cannot just be on social relief agencies or whatever other programs people are bringing with really fancy names. At the end of the day, it requires the community to come together, to work along with law enforcement, and to simply say enough is enough. We are going to simply prohibit the circumstances by which crime takes place. As simple as that. Simpler said than done, right? But it does require for a collective effort, not just one single entity or program. The problem with those programs oftentimes, Scott, is that you bring a program in place and then at some point you got to pull out, right? The funding is not there anymore. You bring police officers in one corner, they enforce the law for 3 weeks, but then at some point the city can't afford to keep them there the entire time, for the rest of the year. So they have to be pulled out. So crime will always come back to those communities until the community, along with law enforcement, say, enough is enough, we'll work together as opposed to work against each other, and we are going to simply, reduce the possibility of a criminal act.
Dr. Alex Del Carmen here on the Scott Sand Show, Associate Dean at Tarleton State University, heads the School of Criminology. This weekend, Friday through Sunday, the Toledo Police Department, Sheriff's Office, and the ATF will be conducting Operation Clean Sweep in Toledo, which will seek to pursue federal gun charges if certain criteria are met. So I don't think this is a bad idea either. The police should be working to get illegal guns off the street and out of the hands of criminals. But it's not really that effective of a deterrent. It only works if the police happen to catch you with an illegal gun. If you're already a criminal, if you've already got an illegal gun, if you've already planned to commit a crime, this itself is not going to be a deterrent to make you think, well, I better not carry this gun around with me for 4 days, or I better get rid of it. I better turn it into a drop box somewhere in front of the police department. That doesn't work. I think it's good to get these charges out there and get criminals off the street, but as a deterrent, is something like Operation Clean Sweep effective?
Right, and so they're effective for the time being, right? So what we see is a dip on the crime, when those operations take place. It's almost like looking at an EKG, and you see that there are waves that go up and those that go down, right? So you see a dip all the way down when those operations take place. They're mostly localized to the area in which the operation is taking place. But crime travels. Crime has legs. It goes from that jurisdiction to the next jurisdiction, and it's patient, right? It waits for the operations and for the operators to leave, and then once they actually leave the premises, then crime will come back again. So my point is you've got to have sustainability plans. You've got to have plans in place that are going to keep negating the circumstances by which crime takes place. Otherwise, it's just going to be a loop, right? You're going to be coming back to those operations every 3 to 6 months whenever, public perception and politics and various other components come into play, and simply say, look, we're having a lot of crime. We're getting hit in this area. We need to get rid of the crime for the time being.
I think that unfortunately the solution, as with often solutions require, the answer is more money and more funding. And I hate to be the guy to say that, but law enforcement is one of the things that the government has a responsibility to provide to protect its citizens, and that costs money. I think our officers are dramatically underpaid and undertrained. That needs to be improved. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, the way to curb gun violence is to flood these high violence areas prone to violence, whether it be gang-related activity or otherwise, with more and stronger police presence. I think that means bringing back concepts like stop and frisk. You've got to prosecute crimes as they're committed. You've got to use new tools that we have like shot spotter technology, and you've got to go after the criminals. You can't just fade into the background and try to have coffee with them at the end of the day after somebody gets killed. You've got to be a little bit more proactive. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I'm just dumb DJ, but that would be part of my 5-step program. You've got to take Rudy Giuliani's fix the broken windows approach, and it also involves other aspects of the community. It means getting people more jobs, disincentivizing them from dealing drugs, getting them off the streets and into more youth programs and activities, and more importantly, long-term careers that can sustain the new family unit.
Yeah, there's no question that we have to invest money on law enforcement. And as I said last year, when this defunding movement was going around the country, and I said it several times, and I know it made some people upset, and I said, you can't say that law enforcement is broken and then at the same time say we're going to remove the funding from them, right? So it makes absolutely no sense. You wouldn't do that to your kid. You wouldn't say, look, you need some help, but, because you need some help, I'm going to go ahead and remove every type of help that I can give you. So it's contradictory in place. And then we do need good police officers. They do need good equipment. They do need cars that work. They do need to be paid better. They need to be appreciated by the community. And on the other hand, we also need cops that are individuals that are enforcing the Constitution and doing a good job. So, the expectations are pretty high of the tall order, but as it relates to crime, it is a comprehensive effort. Look, this is not a new concept for us. Some of us have been studying, in my case, crime for 24 years, and I will tell you that we see these waves from time to time, but it always goes back to the same, which is a collective effort. You mentioned broken windows. There's also CPTED, crime prevention through environmental design, which is the idea of using the environment to be able to negate circumstances of crime, better education, more money, more social relief. It's a combination of factors. You just can't push a button and say, well, here's more money to the cops and let's just go ahead and you guys just solve the problem and we'll see you tomorrow. It doesn't work that way, right? So the community has to be involved and it has to be a collaborative effort.
Dr. Alex Del Carmen, law enforcement expert, Tarleton State University. Always great to talk to you, sir.
You too, sir. Thank you.